Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahshai Bashim Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who were well and teach our short doctrine, and peace and blessings to your elect. Now, as you can see, I just come across this article on The Guardian. It was actually on Sky News, literally like a couple hours ago. I just came across it, and then of course I seen it on I just went through it a little bit on Sky News, and then I came across it on as you can see here, The Guardian. So Lord willing, I get through this article, and Lord willing, it be edifying. But drought declared across 8 areas of England. Now, if we were to talk about droughts in England, say about 2 years ago or something, it would be something so far fetched that someone would probably laugh at you and say it's droughts in England. We have these underground pipes, or I don't think the temperature is warm enough for us to experience droughts and just all these types of stuff. But this is showing you how the Lord is really turning things up, because they have 8 areas, like what they said right here, 8 areas of England that have had droughts declared. And that's serious when you think about it, because a drought, what happens when there's a drought? A drought, there's not enough water, either due to different factors really, and maybe not enough rainfall. And then what happens? The crops, they can't grow because there's not enough water. And then what happens? It leads to famine. So you're kind of seeing how all these things really link up together. But also, if you're having a drought declared, then you could also say there's also going to be a water shortage, because the water that they may sell in shops, they may look at it and say, no, we gotta use these for such and such purposes, because we don't really have enough because of these droughts declared. But anyway, expert group declares official drought amid prolonged dry spells, meaning water rationing may take place. And when I just came across that, I was like, yo, that reminds me of I believe it says in Ezekiel, where it says we shall drink water with measure. And another way to say, we're drinking water with measure is basically we're having to ration, the water, because there's basically not enough. And we're hearing about a potential drought that's going to limit the amount of water that there is to go around. And they're talking about a dark winter, so we have no idea what this, where this is really leading to. Because like I've said in my previous videos, there's never been a good summer over here in the UK without there being an awful winter. I think I have the description on deck actually. I think this may be. Oh, here it is. Ezekiel 4:16. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care. Now, as far as I know, the UK, although it does, it can source its own things, like a little bit of wheat or a little bit of grain and maybe certain fruits, but it gets most of its exports come from different countries. But you have to look at it like this: what if the Lord just kicks up this drought, and it happens, and it has it happen in these major countries, say like these major suppliers, like major suppliers of wheat, major suppliers of fruit, maybe rice as well. And next thing you know, you have a global catastrophe, based on the food, because you have these major countries that would source these fruits, source these different types of crops, source these foods. They can't give it out as much as they did before, because if they're going out, if they're experiencing a drought, that means there's not enough water to go around. Maybe due to a lack of rainfall or different factors, but if their crops aren't getting enough water, that means they can't grow, and if they can't grow, that means those crops won't turn into food. They're just gonna wither and die. And if they Salakia, and if they wither and die, that means what? People are gonna have less food to eat. So it's funny how the Lord has all these things leading to Jacob's trouble, well, I would say slowly but steadily, and currently leading to famine. Because when you actually look at all these different things, situation going over there with Ukraine, the energy crisis, and all these different things, they all somehow lead to food shortages because energy crisis. What do you need? What do you need to keep food chilled? You need electricity, because freezes, deep freezes, and all that. They they need power. They need electricity. They need current. Now you can say, oh well, we can get a generator. No, I'm not 100%. I'm not really familiar, 100% sure how generators work, but a generator ain't gonna help you for long, man. The prolonged dry conditions, with some areas of the country not receiving significant rainfall by like all summer, have caused the National Drought Group to declare an official drought. The Environment Agency has moved into drought in 8 of its 14 areas: Devon and Cornwall, Solent and South Downs, Kent and South London, Herts and North London, East Anglia, Thames, Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire, and East Midlands. These areas, East Midlands, I think that's around near Birmingham sides, and Cornwall, that I believe that's near London. I'm not 100% sure on a couple of these places, but yeah, these are. I'm sure a significant amount of these areas are down south though, like towards the south. Documents seen by the Guardian show the Environment Agency expects a further 2 areas will move into drought later in August. These are Yorkshire and West Midlands. So let's just get into read this. Water companies are beginning to introduce horsepipe bans. Yorkshire Water would come into effect from the 26th of August in West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, East Riding, North Lincolnshire, North Yorkshire, and Derbyshire. Thames Water bans likely. Welsh Water bans likely. Oxford, Wales. That's Welsh. That's Wales. That's definitely down south. Brighton, Oxford. Yeah, like I said, these areas are more towards the south. Leeds, not really so much. Leeds, I believe Leeds is like a little bit in a. I think it's the northeast, but I think the rest of these are more down south. The group met earlier this summer to discuss the lack of rainfall and decided to put the country in prolonged dry weather status. Now, the average person, of course, I'm not gonna lie, the weather was nice and whatnot. I enjoy the weather, but the average person, they weren't really being attentive, as in maybe seeing what certain articles were saying, um, just kind of watching because, or even just paying a general attention, because like I said, there's never been a great summer without there being a terrible winter. It's never happened. Because like I said, I remember I was in a cab. I was talking with a cab driver boy, and he was agreeing with me. He's like, yeah, and he was like, you know, I'm not even 100% sure. So like, yeah, how long he's been over here, but he said he was once on a cruise ship, so but he would have he sound like a well learned man, so you know I'd obviously lived here to know that what I was saying was true. Dry The first of four dry weather stages are one step before drought. Now the country has been tipped into that second stage. This means water rationing may take place. Like I said, does not the scripture say, when the Lord breaks the staff of bread, across the land, we're gonna have to basically be very careful when we're eating the bread and when we're drinking water, because we basically may not know they're gonna eat bread with care, and they're gonna drink water, they're gonna eat bread with care and drink water carefully, with astonishment, because he ain't gonna know, when they're gonna be able to have some more water per se, or some more food. And you're seeing how this is all really coming together and really leading to famine, because a drought a drought is a drought is caused when there's not enough water. So you already know that is the situation with water. And along with the water, you'll find out that the water is needed to grow crops and to grow plants and whatnot. So if there's not enough water, then you're not gonna get a lot of plants. For example, fruits, vegetables, and what potatoes and whatnot. Where am I up to? With few barriers for water companies who wish to ban customers from using hose pipes and washing cars with tap water, more severe measures can also be put in place. Put in place at this stage, including banning the use of sprinklers, the cleaning of buildings, vehicles, and windows. So it seems like no more using sprinklers. You can't clean buildings and vehicles and windows. So things are getting so dire that they're having to cut back and say, okay, so we just so we have enough water, we're gonna have to, you know, X out this, X out this, X out this, and X out this. Because, for example, let me use an example. Say you have a jar of cookies, right? But say your grandma's always baking a jar of cookies. She bakes them, say every week or every month, and then one week she doesn't bake as much as she usually does. Now you usually give them to a whole bunch of people, but obviously she's not made as much as she usually does. So you're now able, to, so you're now unable to give it to as much people as you did before. You're now only able to spread it out a little bit, maybe, but definitely not as much as before. So just like you having to cut back, these guys are cutting back on certain areas where they would have supposedly used water. No, this is actually the first I'm hearing that they're banning the use of sprinklers and the cleaning of buildings, vehicles, and windows. Maybe that's because I'm not in one of the cities that they place on the warning, but yes, this is definitely something to watch out for, because you don't know which direction the Lord could have this going. But this is sounding like the Lord is bringing us into getting us gearing us into Jacob's trouble, because this drought, it can lead to famine, you know, a lack of water. You go into store and expecting to get, say for example, 5 cases of water, and there's usually, like, for the big cases there's usually 40, so there may be 200 or however much water that you get. Just like when it was the pandemic, they were placing a little bit of limits on how much people could get. in this if droughts get declared in certain areas, they could do the same thing and say, just so we have enough water to go around, you can only pick up say one case, or you can only pick up this amount. So it's gonna like just people used to waste water at one point, but if that happens, they're gonna be a lot more careful with the water. They're gonna be, they're gonna want to get as much as they can out of it, especially if they're, if there's something, an issue with the pipes. I'm not 100% sure. It didn't say this. It didn't say that directly in this article, but if there's a situation with the pipes, that only makes it worse because, you know, you gonna how you gonna wash your dishes? Because a lot of people over here, they don't really drink tap water. I'm gonna be honest. I'm one of them. I don't really drink tap water like that. If I do, I'm gonna boil it before I drink it. So far, this year's hosepipe bans have been implemented by Southern Water and Southeast Water. Welsh Water will implement a ban from August, from 19th August, and Yorkshire ban from 26th August. Thames Water has also said it's ready to go with hosepipe ban. So here is they already giving you dates and when they're ready to kick this plan into action. Those in the meeting were showing harrowing statistics about England's food security. Half of the potato crop is expected to fail. It cannot be what does it say, irrigated, and even crops that are usually drought tolerant, such as maize, have been failing. And maize is similar to corn. Is I believe that's one of the main ingredients that they use to make the Doritos. For brothers that may have Doritos, I'm not sure, or those types of things. But that's something that they use in those, in those types of crisps. Or if you just easily, if so like it just simply, if you know it, then that's helpful. So like a helpful analogy. And like I said, this is a dual threat because if a drought links to famine because you have a whole bunch of crops, fruit and veg that end up failing because there's not enough water to help them grow and sustain them. And it's the reason why I say dual is because that's showing you that there's not enough water to go around. So ultimately, it's going to be impacted and it's going to be felt, in your warehouses. In fact, let me get that scripture in Second Ezra. I believe it's 6:22.
Hey, move it!
Second Ezra 6:22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall appear, shall suddenly be found empty. Because if you're having a dual threat, where if you're having a lack of water and a lack of of crops due to the lack of water, then you're gonna see less food, you know, in these like stores, for example, Walmart, for example, Aldi, for example, Tesco, because they all use some natural ingredient to make their products. Even and it even if you're not talking about one of them, we could talk about straight natural products like cucumber, uh, potato, anything else. You can't get around the fact that they use some kind of natural ingredient. And if there is a situation with a drought, which is a lack of water, not enough water to go around, then the impact will be felt. The group was told irrigation options are diminishing, with reservoirs being empty fast and losses of between 10 and 50% are expected for crops including carrots, onions, sugar beet, apples, and hops. Milk production is also down nationally due to lack of food for cows. I, it's almost like the cycle is, putting taking what I'm thinking out my head, because like I said earlier, this is a lack of water is gonna affect the crops, and then the crops, animals depend on the crops, so you're not you're not gonna get as many animals, because if the animals can't eat as much as they did before, then you're gonna have a certain amount of the animals that are gonna starve, which means that you may have a certain percentage or a significant amount of them maybe die off or something like that. We don't know that yet, but we're gonna have to see which direction the law takes him. And wildfires are putting large areas of farmland at risk. And in fact, I believe I seen a news article. I believe it was Italy or France that was experiencing a wildfire. Now you gotta understand, a lot of these wildfires, they're burning trees that may have fruit and whatnot in them. So you gotta understand that they're not just burning nothing; they're burning crops. They may be burning things that you eat, trees with fruit, animals, and different things like that. Farmers are deciding whether to grow crops for next year, and they are concerned that many will decide not to, with dire consequences for the 2023 harvest. So, we were expecting, last year to be the dark winter, but the Lord could have it where this year is the dark winter, because the signs are, we're hearing all these things, because things have only gotten more and more amplified, but it's still, we're still gonna have to wait and see, man. And I believe this is a picture of a meadow or a farm or something like that. You can see this looks dry. Water Minister Steve Double said, "We are currently experiencing a second heat wave after what was the driest July on record for parts of the country. Action is already being taken by the government and other partners, including the Environment Agency, to manage the impacts. All water companies have reassured us that essential supplies are still safe, and we have made it clear it is their duty to maintain those supplies." The group contains representatives for water companies, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, you can see the acronym or whatever, the Environment Agency, the National Farmers Union Natural England, Water UK, and the Drinking Water Inspectorate, as well as the Angling Trust and Rivers Trust. While previous dry summers have been offset by wet autumns, meaning the worst effects on water supply may have not hit those present at the meeting. We're told that was unlikely to be the case this year, with arid conditions predicted to continue due to climate breakdown. So they're basically, so the Lord is, clearing stuff up, because they're basically saying here that, it don't look like a wet autumn gonna save us this time. But ultimately, it's all the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. So we have to wait and see what the Lord has planned, because the Lord could end up, saying, okay, I'm gonna have a little rainfall, and then I'm gonna bring about the drought. Just so it brings these people hopes up a little bit, and then we're gonna have the drought. Or the Lord could just, have this, just continue, and then until we get to the dark winter, because everything is worse in the winter. You can't exactly harvest anything in the winter because it's too cold. At least over here, or at least areas where it actually gets cold in the winter. I can't really speak for areas that is hot all year round. Slides from the EA say an increased chance of warm conditions through August to October is consistent with an increased westerly flow from the warmer averages seas and our warming climate, with typical northwest wetter to southeast drier. And like I just said, a lot of those countries that they mentioned, you know, getting basically getting put on warning are more towards the south, and they're basically saying the southeast is drier. But who knows? It could find its way to up north. Gradu- grad- grad- Gradation in rainfall. Most likely, there are no strong signals for a significant amelior. So like, I've been struggling a little bit. Amelioration of current dry conditions. Most southern and eastern England had just a tenth of its average July rainfall this year, and you know what? I ain't even gonna say the cupping because it's barely. I'm gonna be honest and say I've probably noticed that it's rained like 3 times. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's not rained that much. It's rained like a handful of times, and that's about it. It may very well have only rained 3 times. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it's definitely not rained that much. At least not where I live. Catherine Sefton, a hydrologist, and hydro is just another way of saying water, at the UK Centre for Ecology, and Hydrology, said in the southeast England, the continued dry weather means that many river flows remain notably or exceptionally low. So in other words, it sounds like this extreme heat is causing the rivers, or at least the water in the rivers, to evaporate. And hydraulical forecasts suggest this situation will persist over the next few months, where river flows are supported by groundwater that recharges during the winter months. The impact of dry weather is reduced, but a continuation of below average rainfall into second winter would likely result in serious hydrological and environmental drought, with further intensification of the water supply restrictions and fish rescues that we are starting to see in the southeast. So the extreme weather could lead to you could see a significant amount of fish dying. We don't know what the Lord has in store, but this is just beautiful to see because the Lord is really turning things up, man. It's definitely not a boring time right now, man. There have been five consecutive months of below average rainfall across all geographical regions in England, and above average temperatures, river flow, groundwater levels, and reservoirs. And just to put into perspective, they're seeing the weather over here. On average, I believe they said on average, I can't remember, but I believe they said on average it's hotter than like Jamaica and Bahamas, and those islands are hot, man. Now, of course, I've never been to Bahamas, but I know Jamaica well. River flows, groundwater levels, and the reservoir stocks all decreased during the July 13th. EA monitored indicate that rivers are at the lowest levels ever recorded, and the soil moisture is comparable to that seen at the end of the 1976 drought. So everything that the Lord's having happen, he's making it known that he's, that we in serious times, because everything that's happening is the worst for a certain amount of time period. This seems to be the worst moisture deficit. Let's say 1976. So in like 46 years, there hasn't been something like this. And I'm just gonna get the scripture on Jacob's trouble because that's what it's really gearing into. Because if we're getting serious famines, We're getting Marcus. Marcus is behind the scenes, but they're really waiting for an excuse to bring out Marcus, because if there's a situation with the food or the chaos, it's a perfect reason for them to create chaos and bring the solution like they always do. That's why it says Jacob's trouble is unlike a time, never before seen, because it's going to be on a completely different level beyond our imagination, because we can only compare it to something that we know, but it's going to be far surpass anything that we do know. And at that time, Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. Now there's been famines, there have been genocides, there have been all types of things. So you really have to be put into perspective. What's gonna happen now is gonna far surpass anything it's gonna be much worse than anything that's ever happened in history. Anything that's ever happened in history is gonna surpass. Let me see what I'm up to. And at that, I believe up here. And at that time, thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. And let me just jump over to Jeremiah 30:6 to close out, because it's gonna be unlike a time never before seen.
This battery can turn any bike electric. You just replace your front wheel, attach the sensor to the pedal, and mount.
So like, I didn't even mean for it to, end up this long. But hey, sometimes the spirit has it. It's like the spirit has that happen sometimes, Okay, Jeremiah 30:5. For this saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Because the things that are coming are not, are not nice things that you quote unquote want to hear, but that's not gonna stop them from happening. It's gonna be so serious. You're gonna see men screaming, looking pale face. And these are supposed to be a strong men. So how much more for these other people? That's why it says wisdom and knowledge are gonna be the stability of thy times, because we're gonna understand why these things are happening and what's going on. And Lord willing, the Lord covers us in that time. As ye know, and see whether a man does travail with a child, where do I see every man with his hands on his loins? So in other words, you see a man maybe bending over with his hands on his lower belly, or even even bent over towards over his private part, because your loin usually refers to your private part. And a woman in travail is, those labor pains. So you're gonna have men screaming, because when a woman is in labor, she usually screaming, and all faces are turned to paleness, because the Lord has all these different creatures just waiting to do damage. And he has all these things in store, like famines. He has all these different things. We're seeing all the jigsaws, all the dominoes start to come together. That's why, I always like to make sure I pay attention to all these small things, because a small thing can become a big thing very, very quickly, especially in this time. Alas, for that day is great, so that there is none like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And that he that is referring to is referring to the elect. You know, we're part of the hopeful elect, and Lord willing, the Lord saves us out of it. And in closing, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushua, Bashim, Rukakadash. I pray this lesson was edifying. You know, I just wanted, you know, to update you brothers and sisters as to what was going on. Until next time, Shalom.